Should Jamaican troops pull out of Haiti immediately? Welcome to episode 26 of The Unequal Perspective.
I think what's fascinating about this situation is how it really throws a spotlight on Jamaica's role in regional security. It's not just about Haiti, it's about how things that happen there have ripple effects across the whole Caribbean.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Jamaican troops first landed in Haiti back on September 12th, 2024. So that's been what, like almost 6 months ago now? What was the main reason for that deployment?
Well, basically, it's part of this larger multinational mission trying to wrestle back control from the gangs that have been, causing so much chaos in Haiti.
Right.
Basically trying to give the country a chance to, to breathe a little bit, to stabilize, to rebuild.
Right.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about petty crime here, right? We're talking about gangs running entire sections of the capital city.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Just try to imagine for a second a city where somewhere between 60% and 85% of it is controlled by gangs, heavily armed gangs. That's what Port-au-Prince is like right now.
It's wild.
Yeah, and it cripples the economy. It completely disrupts everyday life. It creates this constant climate of fear.
Yeah.
It's hard to even imagine.
I mean, so this mission, it sounds like it's more than just like a humanitarian effort, right? Jamaica has real security concerns for itself.
Exactly. You can think of it like this, if you've got a house fire next door, you don't just kind of sit back and watch.
Yeah.
Those claims could easily spread to your house.
Right.
And that's kind of how it is with the instability in Haiti.
Especially with these gangs and how much reach they have. It really does have the potential to spill over into Jamaica and other neighboring countries.
Right. Okay, so let's get into how bad things are right now in Haiti. Can you kind of paint us a picture of what's happening on the ground there?
Sure. We're basically talking at a level of brutality that's incredibly disturbing. In 2024 alone, there were at least 5,601 deaths and almost 1,500 kidnappings that were directly linked to gang violence.
Oh, wow.
And these numbers are probably even higher than that because a lot of this stuff goes unreported.
Yeah, it's probably just the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. Yeah, and there are all these reports of massacres, mutilations, just a complete breakdown of law and order in so many parts of the country.
And I imagine it's not just the violence that's really crippling the country. I mean, these gangs are basically strangling the economy too, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They've got control of key ports, which basically means that essential goods, especially food, are being blocked from getting into the country. And Haiti relies so heavily on imports, so this is really pushing the country even deeper into a humanitarian crisis. I mean, people are really struggling to find food and medicine and just the basic necessities that you need to survive.
Wow. Okay, so let's bring it back to the Jamaican troops then. I mean, they're walking into a war zone, essentially. Can they realistically make a difference in a situation this chaotic?
I think that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
They've pledged 170 soldiers and 30 police officers in total.
Right.
But just the logistics of getting everyone and everything in place in such a volatile environment, it's a huge undertaking.
Yeah. Okay, so what are they actually doing over there right now? I know they've got a base set up at the Tucson Louverture Airport, but what are their main priorities at the moment?
Well, so far, the main focus has really been on laying the groundwork, for this whole multinational force. So establishing the command structure, getting all the logistics sorted out, securing the airport, and just starting to try and build some kind of relationship with the local communities. It's a very complex operation, especially in an environment that's as high risk as this.
Absolutely. And then you've also got the UN Security Council. They just extended the mandate for the mission for another year. Right? So that suggests that there's a possibility for long-term commitment from these Jamaican troops.
Yeah, it does. And it really does kind of beg the question, how should Jamaicans feel about this whole thing?
Right.
It's not a simple question. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. All right, so let's unpack it.
Okay.
What are the arguments for and against having Jamaican troops in Haiti?
Yeah.
What are the risks and the potential benefits?
Right. I mean, on the one hand, you've got this sense of, regional responsibility, Jamaica stepping up, showing leadership, trying to help a neighbor that's, in crisis. And I think that really does resonate with a lot of Jamaicans.
Right. And there is that history of cooperation and solidarity in the Caribbean.
Absolutely. And this mission really does tap into that. It's about being a good neighbor,
Right.
offering a helping hand when it's really needed.
Right.
But on the other hand,
Yeah, there's going to be some concerns too.
yeah, there are definitely some serious concerns. First and foremost, you've got the safety of those troops. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about a really dangerous place. Families back home are understandably worried. And then you've got the financial burden.
Right.
This isn't a cheap mission to undertake.
Exactly.
And Jamaica has its own economic challenges to deal with.
For sure.
So there are definitely questions about whether the country can really afford this kind of commitment, especially when you've got all these pressing issues at home that also need attention.
Yeah, it's such a tough balancing act. And it's not just the money either, right? I mean, sending troops overseas could potentially stretch Jamaica's own defense capabilities pretty thin.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. I mean, some people are definitely worried that by focusing so much on Haiti, Jamaica's leaving itself a little bit vulnerable. It raises these broader questions about what Jamaica's role is on the international stage and how it chooses to prioritize its resources.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one.
It's a tough one, yeah. And it really does sound like there's a real debate happening in Jamaica about all of this.
Yeah, there is. And I think that's important. These are really important conversations to be having. What are the limits of responsibility to your neighbors? How do you balance those international commitments with your needs at home?
Right.
These are all questions that, pretty much every nation grapples with at some point.
Okay, so let's maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about the future. I mean, the UN, they extended the mandate, but do you think the Jamaican troops will actually end up staying there for that whole year?
It's really hard to say, A lot really depends on how the situation on the ground changes or doesn't change. I mean, if things start to improve, if the violence dies down, if Haiti starts to show some signs of, actually stabilizing, then maybe they can gradually draw down the troops.
But what if things get worse?
Right.
Like, what if the situation deteriorates even further?
Well, then Jamaica faces a really, really tough decision. Do they stay the course, potentially putting their troops at even greater risk
Right.
in what might seem like a losing battle?
Right.
Or do they pull out,
Right.
and then potentially jeopardize the whole mission and leave Haiti in an even worse position? It's a huge responsibility.
It is, yeah. And it's not a decision they can make on their own, right? I mean, there are other countries involved in this force.
Yeah, exactly. Jamaica's part of this coalition operating under the UN mandate. Any decision about what happens to this mission is going to involve a lot of discussion, a lot of coordination.
Right.
It's not just about what Jamaica wants, it's about what the international community decides to do.
And, we've talked a lot about Jamaica's perspective on all of this, but what about the Haitians themselves? Like, how do they feel about this international intervention?
That's a really good point. I mean, it's really easy to get caught up in all the politics and strategy of it all.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this is about the Haitian people.
Right.
They're the ones that are caught in the crossfire. They're the ones that are really bearing the brunt of this whole crisis.
So what are they saying? Are they generally welcoming of the help, or are they a little bit wary of foreign intervention?
Well, I think it's a mixed bag. I mean, as you might expect, some Haitians see this international force as their only hope. This is their chance to finally get some peace and stability after years of just constant turmoil. I mean, they're desperate for something to change.
Right.
But then you've got others who are a lot more skeptical.
Skeptical of foreign involvement.
Yeah. I mean, they worry about unintended consequences. They worry about history repeating itself.
Right.
Haiti's got this long history of foreign intervention, and it hasn't always been, a positive thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a really sensitive issue, and I guess there are no easy solutions.
Exactly. And it just highlights how important it is to listen to the Haitian people, to really try and understand their perspective,
Right.
to make sure that any kind of intervention that happens is actually in their best interests,
Okay, so we've kind of laid out all these complexities, the situation in Haiti, the challenges that the Jamaican troops are facing, all of the mixed feelings back home in Jamaica. But what does success even look like in this situation?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's a really tough one, and there's no one single answer. But I think maybe we can break it down into a few key things.
Hmm.
I mean, first and foremost, reducing the violence. I think that has to be the immediate priority. Get these gangs under control, restore some semblance of order,
Right.
create some kind of safe environment for people to live in.
Right. But it's not just about ending the violence, right? It's about addressing those root causes of the crisis.
Exactly. Long-term success means tackling things like the poverty, the inequality, the lack of opportunity. I mean, these are things that have fueled this crisis for decades. It requires a real commitment, a sustained commitment to development, investing in things like infrastructure and education and healthcare, creating jobs, really empowering Haitian communities.
Yeah. It's definitely not a quick fix kind of situation.
No, it's a long-term project. And it's not something that the international community can do for Haiti.
Right.
Ultimately, it has to come from within.
Yeah.
The Haitian people need to be the ones that are driving their own destiny, and the international community can play a supporting role in that. But that's really what it comes down to.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. It is. And, I think it's important to remember that this isn't just a story about Haiti, It's also a story about Jamaica and its role in the region.
Right.
It's about the difficult choices that countries have to make when they're faced with these really complex challenges.
Yeah. And, before we wrap up, I want to touch on something that I think is really important and often gets overlooked in these discussions about geopolitics and military strategy.
What's that?
The human element. We talked about, the Jamaican soldiers and the danger that they're in.
Right.
But, what about the toll that this takes on them?
Yeah.
They're witnessing some pretty horrific things. They're dealing with some incredibly stressful situations. They're literally putting their lives on the line every day.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we often focus so much on the big picture, but behind all the headlines, behind all the policy debates, these are real people.
Yeah.
With families and dreams and fears,
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what motivates someone to do this kind of work? To leave their home, to go to such a dangerous place, to put themselves in harm's way for others.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does make you think about that other side of the story. The courage and the compassion, that sense of duty.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these soldiers, they're not just, following orders. This is a conscious choice that they're making to serve, to put themselves out there like that, to try and make things better in a place that really needs it.
Yeah, and I imagine, coming from a place like Jamaica, there's also that sense of, regional solidarity. It's like, we're helping our Caribbean neighbors. We're standing together in this time of crisis.
Yeah, I think that shared history, that cultural connection, it plays a big part. It adds another layer to their motivation. It's not just duty. It's about shared responsibility. It's this belief in the interconnectedness of the Caribbean.
And that's really powerful. And it kind of makes me think about the personal stories behind all this, the individual experiences of these soldiers on the ground. I like those stories often get lost in the bigger picture.
Absolutely. We need to hear from them. What are they seeing? What are they feeling? What are the challenges that they're facing? What's keeping them going in such a, tough and dangerous environment? I mean, those are the stories that really bring this whole situation to life, that remind us of the human costs, the sacrifices that are being made.
Totally. So as we wrap up this deep dive into, Haiti and Jamaica's role and everything that's going on there, I kind of want to leave our listeners with a few key takeaways. What are some things that you think they should really be thinking about as they process all this information?
Okay, well, I think first of all, it's crucial to remember that there are no easy answers here.
Right.
This is a complex issue. There are valid points on every side. It's easy to get caught up in the headlines, the political back and forth. But it's important to have these discussions, to think about the nuances, to really try and avoid those overly simple solutions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And secondly, I think it's important to remember that what happens in Haiti, it doesn't stay in Haiti.
Right.
This whole situation, it really highlights how interconnected our world is, especially in regions like the Caribbean. Instability in one country can ripple out and impact everything: security, the economy, even the social fabric of other countries.
We're all in this together, in a way.
Exactly. And finally, I think it's crucial to never lose sight of that human element.
Yeah.
This isn't just about, geopolitics and military strategy. This is about people. It's about the Haitian people who are just trying to survive, trying to rebuild. It's about the Jamaican soldiers who are putting their lives on the line. And it's about all those individuals and organizations that are out there working so hard to try and create a better future for Haiti.
Yeah, it's a story that's still being written.
Yeah.
And the future is definitely uncertain. But I think, by having these conversations, by understanding how complex the situation is,
Mhm.
by recognizing that we're all connected, I think that's how we can contribute to a more hopeful outcome for Haiti and for the whole region. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to keep learning about this and to have these important conversations about Jamaica's role in the world.